Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, Maverick family. Good evening, new viewers. As we get more new viewers every night that we're on, welcome back to the Maverick News channel. I'm your host, Rick Walker. And it's a privilege to be here with you again tonight. And once again, a stacked show. A lot of stuff to cover tonight. Look, I made a list. You can hardly see it at that lighting, but oh yeah, wow, Chinese pilots being trained by former Canadian military pilots. Biden's big 9/11 lie. Owen Shroyer gets 60 days for J6. We're going to talk a little bit about the Coots boys. Not so much about them, but the way their case is being covered. Moderna, they've had their new COVID vaccine or booster or whatever they want to call it. Seems like they don't want to call it a booster shot. It's being approved by Health Canada. Division in the freedom movement will bring you a special message, I guess, from a prominent live streamer tonight. Is Stu Peters gay? There's a question. McCarthy. He's proceeding with an inquiry into the possible impeachment of Joe Biden. And that goes back to his big 9/11 lie that we'll show you tonight. Kim Jong-un arrives in Russia to meet with Putin. What else do we have here? Oh, there's a poll out. It's kind of a local thing, but we'll show you where they're at on whether they should, at the local level, the municipal level, finally scrap their COVID vaccine mandates. So there's a poll that's happening right now, and we'll show you how that's unfolding as Canada's top public health official, Theresa Tam, brings us the latest on the approval of that new Moderna COVID vaccine. And talks also about possible masks. Well, not possible. She's encouraging people to get their masks ready. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith talks about carbon capture. That's Canada's oil-rich province. And she was talking today about natural gas production, oil, and carbon capture. We'll bring you a little bit of that as well. And who should be Trump's running mate should he secure the GOP nomination to once again take a run at the presidency? Well, we'll tell you who he's considering based on a media report, not a mainstream media report. A smaller conservative media outlet is maybe letting the cat out of the bag. He's looking at a proposal. We'll tell you exactly what that's about too. So you're going to want to stick around for that. And Justin Trudeau's plane broke down. He finally left India, but left behind more international public relations damage in a country where it seems he's not very popular these days, only to return home to a country where he's increasingly not very popular these days. And then we'll show you what Pierre Poilievre did to kind of just stick the thorn that's already in Justin Trudeau's side in just a little tiny bit deeper. Don't go away. We have a lot of stuff to talk about tonight, a lot of ground to cover. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting show. Do not go away.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow, maybe too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Here I am, I'm back. What should we start with tonight? What will be our lead story? How about Joe Biden's big lie? We'll pick up where we left off last night. We brought you his address from Anchorage, Alaska, on the anniversary of the 9/11 tragedy 22 years ago. And during his speech, he talked about going down to ground zero the day after the attack. I didn't think anything of it at the time because I don't follow Joe Biden's schedule so closely that I know where he was 22 years ago at any given moment. But apparently, it was a great, big, giant, fat lie. Another one. A great, big one for Mr. Biden. Let's listen to what he said yesterday, and then we'll give you the facts so you can kind of see what he's doing. Old Joe. Here he is yesterday, Anchorage, Alaska. This is what he said. And this is Joe's latest fib. Here he is. Get him up on the screen for you. Okay, Joe, let it rip.
Never forget. Never forget. We never forget. Each of us, each of those precious lives stolen too soon when evil attacked. Ground Zero in New York. And I remember standing there the next day and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell. It looked so devastating because from where you could stand. Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the Pentagon in Virginia. I spent many 9/11s in those hallowed grounds to bear witness and remember those we lost. Every day, but especially the last few days, their memory has been with me. I'm just returning from the G Summit, the G20.
Not the G7, Joe, the G20. Yeah. Can't remember where he was or what he was doing. Can't keep things straight. But that, I don't know. Everybody remembers where they were on 9/11. He says he was down there the day after at ground zero, except it's not true. Apparently not. What am I talking about? Well, looks like he wasn't there. And he writes about it in his book. Let me see if I can find the info that I had up here. So, not that one, not that one. Oh, I've got so much material here for you tonight, folks. Anyway, he wrote in his book, he wasn't there. I got to get my notes up here. Here it is. He said that he was present at the World Trade Center site in New York City the day after. But in his book, his own autobiography, he places himself at that time somewhere else. In Washington, D.C., not at ground zero. So he went on to claim in the address that he saw a fireball caused by the plane that crashed into rural Pennsylvania after passengers revolted. But in his book, he says he only saw a brown haze of smoke. So ground zero in New York, he says, I remember standing there the next day, as you heard, and looking at the building, and I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell. You just heard him say that. Except he wasn't there. Now, the fireball question, he said, plume of fire that shot up in the sky in Pentagon, I remember seeing as I got off the Amtrak train on my way to work in the United States Senate. I don't know. So he wrote his autobiography, or at least it was released in 2007. Promises to Keep is what it was called, what it is called. And he writes in there that he arrived in Washington on the morning of September 11th. He said that after American Airlines Flight 77 struck the Pentagon, quote, I could see a brown haze of smoke hanging in the otherwise crystal clear sky beyond the Capitol dome. And then he added, I headed back to the Capitol next morning, which is September 12th, 2001. Nowhere in the book is it mentioned that Joe went on any trip to ground zero. Now, there was a report from CNN that the White House provided a photo and article that showed Joe touring ground zero on September 20th, 2001. At the time, he was, as you know, a senator from Delaware. The White House official also says, apparently on condition of anonymity to some media outlets, that the president first visited the World Trade Center 9 days after the September 11th terrorist attacks as part of a bipartisan delegation from the Senate. So he's getting hammered on Twitter, or now X, for his remarks yesterday, claiming to have been at ground zero. Why does he do this? Virtue signaling, folks. Facts don't matter. Never let facts get in the way of a good story. Does it really matter? I think it matters when you're the president. I don't know how he gets away with this stuff. It's disrespectful, disingenuous. He's lying to make himself look good. And then after the terrorist attack, I ran right down there. I was there the next day, and it was horrific. It was terrible. And I see how much I cared. It's actually pretty disgusting. It's disrespectful to the families, the victims. And it's sad. I mean, at that point, when he was a senator, would it have made any difference to have him there? I mean, what's he going to do? He's a useless politician. He's going to pick up chunks of concrete or something and chuck them into the back of a dump truck so they can be taken away? Or what's that guy going to do anyhow? Really, he'd just be in the way at that point. But they always have to have their photo op and get down there. But here we are years later, 22 years later, and he's making up fibs, more fibs, to make himself look good. I don't like that stuff. I don't like misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, information designed to mislead. That's exactly what that is. Vote for me. Again, I'm a hero. Not. So we bring you the facts here. Facts that the mainstream media might have published. I know that there has been some coverage on this through the mainstream media, but it is not being given prominence in the news lineup during this news cycle. So we're putting it right front and center so that you guys get the truth about Joe Biden and his virtue signaling, lying ways. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Joe Biden. The president, a man who really, as anybody in that position, you would hope someone in a position like that would have the highest level of integrity and would take the position with the utmost level of seriousness and realize how much the public, the world, is counting on you. But clearly that guy, he's not there for the people. He's there to do other things like, send money to Ukraine and then have it recycled and stuff. Which is why tonight we have an inquiry into a possible impeachment. Here we go with Speaker McCarthy. So he's ordered an impeachment inquiry into Biden. Kevin McCarthy just announced this. Says he's ordering House Republicans to move ahead with the impeachment inquiry. He says today he previously indicated that there would be a full House vote for an impeachment inquiry, as has happened in the past, but today he didn't appear to have the votes to open one. So a spokesperson for McCarthy said that he is not going to do that, but he is pushing ahead with this. So we have a clip from him here. And the reasons are pretty clear why, and I'm sure that you're aware of the concerns surrounding Biden and his family and Hunter and a laptop and possible involvement of the president and his son's business dealings, et cetera, et cetera. Let's listen in.
is speaking, expected to address a few issues, including a potential impeachment inquiry into President Biden. Let's listen.
President Biden did lie to the American people about his own knowledge of his family's foreign business dealings. Eyewitnesses have testified that the president joined on multiple phone calls and had multiple interactions. Dinners resulted in cars and millions of dollars into his son's and his son's business partners. We know that bank records show that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to the Biden family members and associates through various shell companies. The Treasury Department alone has more than 150 transactions involving the Biden family and other business associates that were flagged as suspicious activity by U.S. banks. Even a trusted FBI informant has alleged a bribe to the Biden family. Biden used his official office to coordinate with Hunter Biden's business partners about Hunter's role in Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company. Finally, despite these serious allegations, it appears that the president's family has been offered special treatment by Biden's own administration, treatment that not otherwise would have received if they were not related to the president. These are allegations of abuse of power, obstruction, and corruption, and they warrant further investigation by the House of Representatives. That's why today I am directing our House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. This logical next step will give our committees the full power to gather all the facts and answers for the American public. It's exactly what we want to know, the answers. I believe the president would want to answer these questions and allegations as well. This effort will be led by Chairman James Comer, a committee on oversight, in coordination with Chairman Jim Jordan for Judiciary Committee and Chairman Jason Smith on Ways and Means. Now, I do not make this decision lightly. And regardless of your party or who you voted for, these facts should concern all Americans. The American people deserve to know that the public offices are not for sale, and that the federal government is not being used to cover up the actions of a politically associated family. Now, I would encourage the president and his team to fully cooperate with this investigation in the interests of transparency. We are committed to getting the answers for the American public. Nothing more, nothing less. We will go wherever the evidence takes us. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the end of that. So that's McCarthy endorsing an inquiry into possible impeachment of Joe Biden. Take another quick break. Be back on the other side of this. Don't go away. Lots more ahead.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
So, truth is important. Accuracy is important because accuracy in reporting is part of the process of getting you closer to the truth. You can't be truthful. You can't have a report full of truth if you're not accurate. And I have to say that on this program, I've noticed a few people, a couple of people anyway, in recent weeks who have been on as guests, make reference to the Coots boys who are in jail out in Western Canada and have been behind bars now for well over 500 days. Their case has not gone to trial. They, of course, were involved in sort of involved in the freedom protest that was happening at the same time as the convoy in Ottawa. There was the protest that was happening on the Canada-US border right there in Coots, Alberta. And they were arrested, 4 of them. They are being held, considered by many, most, I think, maybe everybody on the freedom side of things as being political prisoners. But on this program, a couple of people have said that they're being held, they've been held now for over 500 days without any charges being laid. And I keep hearing that over and over and over again. But it isn't really true. That's not true at all, actually. Because the truth is, they have been charged. Of course, they've been charged. It's illegal to, in Canada, arrest someone, throw them in jail, and not lay any charges, just keep them in there for no reason. To show you what I'm talking about, now this was not what's, this isn't someone who was on the program, but this is what I'm hearing over and over again now. And I think it's happening because people have become misinformed. Maybe they're in error, or maybe some people are just outright lying for political reasons to bolster public support, maybe for the Coots boys who are in jail still. Regardless of your view on the issue, the facts are the facts. Now, here's Ron Clark, freedom advocate, talking about this. And he's not alone. I'm just running this clip to show you what people are saying about this. And he's using the exact same words that I'm hearing quite a number of other people use as well. And I just want to bring this to your attention because, as I say, we've had even people on this program make this assertion, and it just isn't really true. And it kind of slipped by me a couple of times when people were saying this. So I didn't call for a correction on the fly, but I do want to just kind of set the record straight so people understand exactly what's going on with that case. And in a larger sense, I just want people to have accurate information so everything is properly framed as we move forward this month. Here's Ron Clark making reference to the Coots boys.
Pretty crazy, isn't it? Don't forget, we still have 4 political prisoners sitting in jail, actually in a remand center, going on 600 days in a remand center and never been charged with nothing. Nothing. For standing up for the rights and freedoms of the people in this country. And now they're in prison, not charged, and still detained.
No. That's not really true. What are they charged with? Well, let me pull it up here. I know that one of the charges is conspiracy to commit murder. And some weapons charges. It's been widely reported. Let me get you the list. And I know some people are saying that the weapons that were recovered were confiscated, were planted. There is someone who's made that allegation, saying that police planted the weapons that were confiscated, and there were some photos that we showed you that were released by police. And so, of course, a lot of people who are already distrustful of government and police, those kinds of comments fuel even more of that, because people are being told that people are being thrown in jail in Canada with no charges being laid. You can't do that. You have to lay charges and you have to be arraigned. That means they have to show the body. They have to bring the person before the court so that the public is aware that these people, anybody who's charged with a crime and is being held in jail, that there's a public record of it, so that you can't just disappear people. We don't do that in Canada. Now, I'm not a big fan of the government, and I'm not sitting here trying to justify one way or the other anything. I'm just trying to give you accuracy. Let me get you the so they're charged with conspiring to murder RCMP officers. Here. I mean, I'm going to bring up a mainstream media article, and I'm not a big CBC fan, but this was dealt with in court, and I'm just going to show you. There's lots of information about this out there, and we've reported this in the past. We did report this when the charges were laid. So there you are. 4 Alberta border protesters charged with conspiring to murder RCMP officers. Most of the accused face charges of mischief to property over $5,000 and possession of a weapon. 4 also face an additional charge of conspiracy to murder, with one man also charged with uttering threats. Those are the charges. Conspiring to kill police officers, that's a pretty serious charge. Is it going to stick? Were the weapons planted? I have no idea. I have not been in the courtroom. I've not had access to the evidence. Most of that information, I'm sure, is being withheld at this point because of publication bans, which is, from my experience covering court, and I've covered a lot of court cases over the years as a reporter, certain information can be released before trial, certain information can't. This information will come out during the trial, but it's going to take some time to get there. Now, 500, 600 days. I don't think we're at 600 yet. It's over 500, I believe. That's a long time to wait, but the wheels of justice turn slowly. I can also tell you from my experience that if convicted on charges, people who are held in custody are generally given 2-for-1 credit against their sentence for time already served while awaiting trial. Sometimes, quite often, the trials are conducted, and then by the time they get to the end and a verdict is reached and a sentence is passed, they've already served enough time to be released, with the judge saying, you've already served this amount of time, you get 2-for-1, basically cuts your sentence in half, you've paid your penalty, your debt to society, and you are free to go now. Or there's maybe some probation or something that comes after that. It is far from a perfect system, that is for sure. And I think that more needs to be done, just my opinion, to expedite trials in this country. Prosecutor Stephen Johnston, a defense lawyer, UFNIV, have made arrangements for most of the accused to be released on bail. This is like from way back when the charges are first laid. Those facing conspiracy to murder charges must have a bail hearing before a superior court judge at a later date. And of course, we know that they've just been held since then because they weren't granted bail. And I suppose if you're accused of conspiring to murder police officers, that's a pretty serious charge. If there's any truth to that, one way or the other, then if you got people who want to kill cops, then you normally wouldn't release them out into public. I don't know. I do know for sure the charges have been laid, and I hear people making this assertion that no, they haven't been charged with anything. They only got charged because they were out there fighting for freedom, so they arrested them. No, they laid charges. Are the charges fake? Well, I guess we'll find out during the trial, hopefully. Were the weapons planted? I guess we'll get some evidence. And if they've been charged falsely, if this stuff comes out, we'll get information. We'll get information. I don't know if people saying these things, if it's just mistakes, errors, if they're just repeating something that someone has said that is in error, could be. Or I think it's probably a combination of that. It's probably more a combination of some key people making the claim that they haven't been charged with anything because it sounds better. So it bolsters public support and sympathy for the accused. And then people repeat it over and over again because it flows into the narrative on the other side. That's what's really going on. But around here, I'm not a propagandist. I'm not an activist in that sense. We're trying to give you honest journalism and be accurate. And I'm bringing this up because a few people have said this on the program over the past few weeks. I'm not even trying to single out Ron Clark. He's just one of many people saying that, but I know it isn't true. I also wanted to bring this to your attention tonight because Shadow Davis, I don't know him. Seems like a good guy. I don't really watch his program, but people sent me, a link to his show. I was watching his show and he wants this information shared. So I thought, yeah, well, we'll share this out for Shadow tonight. We'll absolutely share it out for him. I won't run all of the whole thing, but he had a special broadcast. I think it was last night, just recently anyway, in less than 24 hours, I believe. So this is pretty fresh. And, he's involved in organizing one of the 1 million person marches in his community. And he's concerned because he's discovering what, honestly, I became aware of some time ago, that there is a cancer growing within the freedom movement. So he's calling it out on his show. There is some trouble. There are problems. And, I started uncovering some of this infiltration, if you will, through investigation well over a year and a half ago. Well, maybe not a year and a half ago, but a year ago. And here's Shadow Davis. Really, he's just beginning now to see some of what I saw, and he's experiencing it firsthand. Here's what he had to say.
Let's just wait for a little bit, and hopefully we get some more people showing up. David is here, and Stanley, and Diane, and Smitty, and Peppy, Misty, and Chris. And on Facebook, we have Michelle and Lorraine, and Steve, and Judy, and Rick, and Suzanne, Christy, Wanda. Okay, guys, I want you to share this, not just now, but I want you to share this after I'm done as well. It's very important we get this message out to as many people as possible, okay? We have a subversive element. I really don't like saying this, but we have a subversive element in our Manitoba organization, and they are trying to subvert a peaceful movement about the SOGI 123 curriculum that is being implanted in schools across our country. They want to change the message, and they want you to amplify their message for them, and they're not being forthright. So this is what I personally wrote about a half an hour ago, and I want to share it with you guys right now. So let's go ahead. I guess I can skip the okay, guys, I have some interesting news to share with you part. First thing I'd like to say to you is please do not panic or become upset with what I'm going to tell you. However, this is important news, and again, I would like you to share this. As you know, the March for Kids is coming up on September 20th. This is next Wednesday. It's getting very close. I've known for some time about a guy running around the city of Winnipeg and some parts of Manitoba claiming he's something he isn't. His name is David. He and his 2 or 3 followers, and that's really all he has, are also passing out pamphlets. They were out on the streets and in churches this past weekend, passing out pamphlets telling people about a change of location for the march in Winnipeg. They were at Springs Church over the weekend, if you can believe that. Well, he was anyway. I'm not sure about they, because they means 3, seriously. This change of location is absolutely false. For the record, the second Dana Metcalf and I connected to tell you all about the 1 million person march, which was a few weeks ago now, Mike Wojciechowski and I decided that he and I, would put together the Winnipeg portion of the march. Dana was informed of that, and plans started to be made. Now, some people are asking, how come the 1 million March for Children, the website, chose City Hall as the plot point for the Winnipeg March? That's a mistake. Dana and I have spoken about that, and that will be corrected in the next hour. Anyway, you've probably seen the City Hall muster point on some posters on social media claiming that City Hall is the meeting point and not the Forks. Again, that is not true at all. Well, I cannot control what others do, nor would I ever want to, based upon the principles of freedom. I can tell you that the people who are organizing the City Hall gathering have plans that do not coincide with our own. They have a much different agenda. They are connected to a much more extreme movement that involves, once again, Marcus Ray and a few others who have touted violent measures in the past. I am not saying that these people intend violent measures during the march on September 20th. I'm telling you that they have connections to those people. I don't exactly know what their plans are, but I do know that they conflict with our own. They are not what they appear to be. They are not being straightforward with you or with anybody. What Mike and I have been working on is a peaceful march from the Forks, the CN stage at the Forks, to the west side of the legislature, where we've lined up speakers to tell you all about what the SOGI 123 curriculum is, which is the woke agenda they're currently trying to implement in schools across the world, not just your school division, not just your province, or even just Canada, but across the world. And how we are fighting back against it using every legal measure in the book. Ultimately, the biggest and best tool in the toolbox is us, the people. Surveys, opinion polls, and petitions are one thing, but they don't compare with thousands of people standing together peacefully, not provocatively, no matter your culture or religion, to tell those in power, those we elected, and will elect, possibly again, that we will not stand for this nonsense anymore. That we believe in a parent's right to know what's going on in their child's life and to give consent when a child decides to do something drastic and irreversible to their body without thinking it through. They are still, after all, children. We need to let kids be kids and help them whenever and wherever we can, whether they know it or not. I've been informed that people who are planning the City Hall gathering are also planning to have, or try to have, and I don't believe this will actually work, but they're planning to try and have a second stage set up at the legislature where they can deliver their extreme message. I've also been informed that something, and this came directly from this David guy that I was telling you about, I've also been informed that something could go terribly sideways. Now, this guy apparently is their lead organizer and mouthpiece. He's the one who's been going out handing out pamphlets and telling anybody who will listen that it's at City Hall, not the Forks, which again is a lie. When I asked this guy point blank last week on the telephone, who else is involved with this thing you're doing? He mentioned 3 names, one of which I knew, and then I shook my head. When I asked him what he wanted, what do you want? Directly, he refused to answer, claiming I interrupted him the first time. So then he refused to answer when I asked him the same question seconds later. I have it on good authority that they are trying to use our march to amplify their message, to let kids be kids. That's our message, not theirs. And ultimately, hang on just a second, I skipped ahead with what I wrote here. So let me go back to the part where I was talking about amplifying the message. I'm sorry. They are trying to use our march to amplify their message, and that's not what this is about. They can't get enough people on their own. So they're trying to use you and I, and that is simply not going to happen. We want no provocative messaging. We want no F Trudeau flags. We don't want any aggressive, anything that could be perceived as aggressive. We want a fun, family-friendly atmosphere. That is what we've been talking about for the past 2 or 3 weeks, and that is what we intend. Absolutely. We also, at the same time, want to send the message, let kids be kids, and ultimately get this ridiculous curriculum of radical ideology out of the schools before some kid, maybe yours, comes home from a hospital one day having had a double mastectomy because somebody convinced your daughter she was born in the wrong body without ever having told you about it. That's what's going on these days. Next Wednesday, the 20th, we're meeting at the CN stage at the Forks starting at 9 a.m. Then at 11, we will start the march to the legislature. At noon, we'll start the speaking program, and you'll be home by 1 o'clock if you want, or back at work, whichever. Or you can hang around and meet some like-minded people as well. It is up to you. If you want to go to City Hall and meet up with those people, I can't stop you. I just wanted you to know some of what they have planned. They are not acting in good faith, in my opinion. Guys, I believe this has become a matter of personal trust. This guy who is running around the city and parts of our province, abjectly lying about what Mike and I are planning, is a person that I had never met or even heard of before any of this started 2 weeks ago. I don't trust him. I've asked around about him, and people either don't know about him or have only just recently met him themselves. And the overriding opinion is, don't trust this guy. He's come out of the blue. That's the first red flag. On the other hand, you've known me for quite some time. You've known Mike for quite some time, and you know what we stand for. And you know that when we say something, we follow up on it, because that's how we are, period. Having said that, There is no show tonight, guys, but there will be tomorrow night, and Dana Metcalf will be my guest.
Okay. So the drama continues. Enough of that. Take a break. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. What's next? Owen Shroyer gets 60 days for J6. Oh, yeah. And for what? Now, you want to talk about somebody who didn't do anything wrong and still ends up charged and is going to jail? Well, Owen Shroyer might fit that. Might fit that bill. He has been sentenced to 2 months in prison for his, well, involvement in what happened on J6. All he did was show up. He didn't go into the building. Here's an ABC report talking about the InfoWars host. Of course, their take on this is somewhat slanted, but says he's been sentenced to 2 months behind bars for joining the mob's riot, as they describe it, at the U.S. Capitol, because prosecutors said he, quote, helped create the situation on J6 by, in their view, spewing violent rhetoric and spreading baseless claims of election fraud to hundreds of thousands of viewers. That's the way the prosecution characterized Shroyer's involvement on J6. Now, I understand he went there, he was speaking, he did take people to the Capitol, stood outside after leading the march to the Capitol building, went to a location near the top of the building steps. It didn't go inside. Shroyer says here, Shroyer didn't need to set foot inside the Capitol because many of his followers did, prosecutors argued. They said Shroyer spread election disinformation and, quote, again, quote, thinly veiled calls to violence on January 6th to InfoWars viewers in the weeks leading up to the attack. Says here, again, quote, Shroyer helped create January 6th. That's what they wrote in their court filing. Shroyer told U.S. District Judge Timothy Kelly that he wasn't part of any plan for violence or other illegal activity on January 6th. He also said he wasn't trying to stir up the crowd with his chants. He said it was to get the attention and draw the crowds away, he said. Kelly told the InfoWars host that there was nothing patriotic about joining a mob that interfered with the peaceful transfer of presidential power from Trump to Joe Biden. Kelly, the judge, said Shroyer, quote, amped up the mob on the Capitol steps with his amplified words. She said, context is everything. I do not believe that you were trying to distract the crowd or turn the crowd away from the Capitol. Says here an InfoWars video promoting the big DC marches on the 5th and 6th of January ended with a graphic of Shroyer and others in front of the Capitol. The day before the Capitol riot, Shroyer called in to a live InfoWars broadcast and internet program and said, everybody knows this election was stolen. And that is again a quote which has been used against him in order to sentence him to the 2 months behind bars. Goes on and on and on. More than 1,100 people have been charged with Capitol riot-related federal crimes. Over 650 of them have pleaded guilty. More than 600 have been sentenced, with over half receiving terms of imprisonment ranging from 3 days to 22 years, which I believe is the sentence that was given to Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio. Wicked. Some people coming to the defense of Owen Shroyer tonight, including Savannah Hernandez, journalist. I'll show you what she had to say. Here's a tweet from her. Call them tweets now? Or are they just an X? I don't know what you call them. She says Owen Shroyer has been sentenced to 2 months in prison for his free speech surrounding January 6th. We are all Owen Shroyer now, and the DOJ is sending a message to all of us. If you use your First Amendment to push back against the tyrants in power, they will arrest you. That's on Twitter. Yeah. The government might not like what you say, but if you believe in free speech, you have to tolerate it. You have to put up with it. It comes with the free speech package. And you better be careful who you censor and shut down and who you throw in jail. Because what goes around comes around, especially with stuff like this. And people who have power today quite often don't have power tomorrow. Take Donald Trump. He's not in power right now. Wants to get back into power. And he's looking for a running mate in the event that he actually does secure the GOP nomination. Here's a report tonight from, this is a smaller conservative media outlet called Political Signal. And it says Trump, it says he's considering the proposal. What proposal? A proposal that would put DeSantis beside him as his running mate, Ron DeSantis. Politics being, says here, politics brings together odd bedfellows. Isn't that interesting, since Lori's program is called Strange Bedfellows? Potentially even Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. Actually not that dissimilar in many respects. While polls show the former president dominating the Florida governor in a prospective GOP contest in 2024, some insiders in Trump world, it says here, are pleading with the 45th president to choose DeSantis as his running mate. And Trump is listening, it says here, according to what they've heard. According to a Trump world insider who spoke with Page 6, some of his supporters are suggesting he make a deal with DeSantis to make him VP, and he's listening, but he hasn't yet agreed. That's as far as the story goes. So I don't know how much weight to give that. Some of these smaller media outlets, sometimes they're pretty good. Sometimes it's clickbait, exaggerated, sometimes not accurate. Sometimes they're just not thorough. Sometimes it's even just made up. Would that be a winning combo? Pretty powerful. It would definitely galvanize the base on the GOP side. It would end the feud between Trump and DeSantis, which I believe is really just largely theatrics because they're running against each other. They both want the nomination. That's what you do when you're running against a political rival. They tear each other apart. And Trump is vicious. He's ruthless. It's his nature. He likes to win. So DeSantis has been off balance since the beginning or since the launch of his campaign. But if he were to align and grab that VP running mate spot, all that would end. They'd kiss, make up, and be the best of friends again. Keep in mind that Trump and DeSantis used to be very friendly. It's just politics. It's made for social media. It's the evolution of reality TV into something that really is reality now, being scripted for social media. And I would say even propaganda, political propaganda, political campaigns, public relations, even mind warping. Yeah, you think it's like we're watching a movie or a television show? Of course we are. This is it, man. This is an information war on many different levels from different directions. And yes, we are watching a television show, except it isn't TV. It's reality scripted for social media with the objective being influence. They're trying to sell you something and get you to respond in particular ways, to take particular actions. In this case, ultimately, to go out and vote. But more than that, get behind and support a particular candidate or cause. And we're seeing that too with other political efforts to get people to take action, even, right? That's what the judge is asserting, really, in that case against Owen Shroyer and a lot of the other defendants in the J6 cases. They're suggesting that Shroyer was basically a propagandist of some kind and was using the InfoWars platform and his own social media channels to reach hundreds of thousands of people, to get people jacked up and to do things with unconstructive messaging, be destructive or deconstructive messaging. Is that true? I would argue this. Even if it is true, even if it was true, even if he was calling for people to oppose the government, unless he comes right out and calls on people to take very specific violent actions, you have to tolerate his speech. If it's really just about political viewpoints, then throwing in jail is a bridge too far. And that is in itself an assault on the system, on the country. And then the court and the judge have actually taken a caustic, toxic course of action that begins to tear down the country and tear at the fabric of our democracies. Judge needs to be very careful. Not careful enough in this case. I don't think the administration has been careful enough in these cases. For they are acting in a way that is destructive. which is what they're accusing Owen Shroyer of being. It's complicated and yet so simple. Just let people speak. Free speech. Don't go away. More ahead right after this message. I will be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, here's Senator John Kennedy. So what's he doing here? This is an interesting clip, and I bring it up because we have this million person marches happening across the country. I'm told that this thing is happening in 77 different locations. That's a lot in Canada. If that's true, if they're actually, if there's that level of interest, I don't know. That is what I heard yesterday from an organizer of one of these marches. That's a lot. So here's Senator John Kennedy, where he was at this hearing into the use of, how can I put this, material for children that is, well, it's just downright pornographic is what it is. So just so you're forewarned, this gets pretty graphic. The language, you may be offended by it. So if that's the case, if you have sensitive ears, you may want to turn your speaker down for a minute while this clip rolls. He is speaking to and questioning some educators or experts on education who want this kind of material in school libraries for children. Here he is, Senator John Kennedy. Again, just be forewarned, this gets pretty graphic. He's reading from the material that is there apparently for children.
Us to do. Let's take two books that have been much discussed. The first one is called All Boys Aren't Blue, and I will quote from it. I put some lube on and got him on his knees, and I began to slide into him from behind. I pulled out of him and kissed him while he masturbated. He asked me to turn over while he slipped a condom on himself. This was my ass, and I was struggling to imagine someone inside me. He got on top and slowly inserted himself into me. It was the worst pain I think I have ever felt in my life. Eventually, I felt a mix of pleasure with the pain. Close quote. All Boys Aren't Blue. The second is another much discussed book. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's called Genderqueer. Okay. Let me read an excerpt from that. Quote, I got a new strap-on harness today. I can't wait to put it on you. It will fit my favorite dildo perfectly. You're going to look so hot. I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. Then I want you inside of me. End quote. Now, Mr. Secretary, what are you asking us to do? Are you suggesting that only librarians should decide whether the two books that I just referenced should be available to kids? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay. Tell me what you're saying.
Well, first of all, there's this.
Don't give me a speech. Tell me what you're asking me to do.
With all due respect, Senator, and the words you spoke are disturbing, especially coming out of your mouth is very disturbing. But I would also tell you that we're not advocating for kids to read porn, to Senator Booker's point.
What are you advocating for?
We are advocating for parents, random parents, not to have the ability, under the guise of keeping kids safe, to try and challenge the world view of every single manner on these issues.
You're getting conceptual again.
I'm not getting conceptual. I'm saying
yes, you are. Yes, you are. Because I want to know what you're recommending. It sounds to me like what.
Yeah, enough. You know, there's like this line that is easy to cross with this stuff too, because concerns about these things morph into emotional responses, which is completely understandable, especially if you have kids in school. I remember when my kids were of school age, they had at the high school level, which I'm sure they probably still do in our community, a gay straight alliance. And, you know, I remember my daughter coming home and just mentioning that to me years ago. I don't have an issue with that. It's just about kids coming together so that one group of kids doesn't get beat up, basically, is the way I kind of saw it at the time. But this is a long time ago. Well, maybe not that long ago. 15 years, maybe 20. Anyway, that's one thing. But, you know, now you've got the million-person march coming up next week. You have also, though, you know, this heightened emotion, this pushback we're seeing on the streets, but that's morphing into something, I think I'd say a little bit darker, maybe a lot darker. What am I talking about? I'm talking about, well, concerns that or messaging that goes beyond, you know, just don't, you know, let's get this out of the schools to a place where it's more like just an anti-gay message, right? What am I talking about here? Let me see if I can find a clip for you. I had this queued up to show you what I'm talking about. I have so much material tonight, though. Let me take a quick break. I'll find to see if I can find it here for you. I was going to kind of illustrate something pretty important. And I'll be right back. Let me just get this set up. I'll see if I can find it for you. I do apologize for the delay, but you're going to love this.
We are Mavericks. We say no to the Trudeau and Biden New World Order. and to bugs. Because bugs are creepy and gross. And people should not eat bugs.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Hey, no! It's too much!
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Sorry, folks, I lost my clip, so we'll move on. Maybe I'll find it for you for later in the broadcast. It's okay. I will recover it at some point. Masks. This is an important story anyway, and I want to get to this. So Theresa Tam, Canada's top public health official, has announced that Health Canada has approved use of Moderna's Spikevax COVID-19 vaccine for all Canadians over the age of 6 months. This just announced. And she says, get your masks ready as we head into cold, flu, and COVID season. Let's bring this up and hear what she has to say. Hang on a second here. Here we go. We'll join this news conference now.
Bonjour à toutes et tous. Today, hello everyone. I had an update from the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, or NACI, on the use of COVID-19 vaccines this fall and an overview of our expectations for the upcoming respiratory virus season. With today's authorization, NACI is reaffirming its guidance on the use of COVID-19 vaccines this fall. NACI recommends authorized age groups get an updated COVID-19 vaccine dose this fall, 6 months after their last vaccine dose or infection. Provinces and territories will be providing additional information on COVID-19 and seasonal flu vaccine availability in their respective regions. We will have enough supply of the updated COVID-19 vaccines to support immunization programs across Canada. From the start of 2023, COVID-19 indicators had been on a decline to historically low levels for a number of months. In the last few weeks, we have started to see an increase in COVID-19 indicators across many areas of the country, including hospitalizations. The Omicron variant continues to evolve, with XBB subvariants such as EG.5 continuing to circulate in Canada and globally. Canada has also reported 11 cases of the Omicron subvariant BA.2.86. Here's some good news. Preliminary clinical data have shown promising immune responses from the XBB.1.5 vaccine, the vaccine receiving regulatory authorization today, against various Omicron sublineages, including EG.5 and BA.2.86. This improved immune response is expected to better protect against the strains that are circulating in our communities. It has been more than 6 months since your last dose of COVID-19 vaccine or your last infection, your protection from the virus may have waned. Receiving a COVID-19 vaccine dose this fall with an updated formulation is expected to increase individual protection against infection, symptoms, and severe disease. This is particularly important for people at increased risk of severe outcomes, such as people 65 years and older, individuals with underlying medical conditions, pregnant people, and those living or working in congregate living settings. Vaccination in combination with personal protective measures are integral tools to reduce the negative impact of respiratory illnesses. This is especially important as we head into the colder months, when people spend more time indoors and the risk of respiratory illness increases. Last year, Canada experienced an early and intense influenza season during a time of high circulation of the respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV, putting increased strain on already stressed healthcare systems, particularly the pediatric healthcare system. It is difficult to predict what will happen this fall and winter regarding the co-circulation of influenza, RSV, and COVID-19, given that it is still early in the season. But the good news is we can get prepared and protect ourselves in case simultaneous surges of respiratory viruses occur. This is why receiving a COVID-19 vaccine dose, as well as a flu shot this fall, is especially important. It is safe to receive COVID-19 and flu vaccines at the same time. These vaccines will help to keep us from getting seriously ill and, by extension, reduce the burden on our health systems. Treatments can also help to reduce serious illness posed by COVID-19. The Government of Canada is funding Can Treat COVID, a clinical trial with sites across Canada to evaluate treatments like Paxlovid for acute COVID-19 infection. You can find out more information at cantreatcovid.org. Everyday personal protective measures such as staying home when sick, cleaning your hands frequently, properly wearing a well-fitting mask or respirator, and improving ventilation as possible remain effective strategies to reduce the spread of respiratory viruses, especially when combined with vaccination. With children now back in school, check to make sure their routine vaccines are up to date for their age. Immunization remains the #1 action we can take to protect children from serious infectious diseases. For older adults, it's important to remember that during the fall and winter months, people over the age of 65 are at greater risk for other infections too, like bacterial pneumonia. So if you're in this age group, now is also a good time to discuss getting the pneumococcal vaccine with your healthcare provider. With these tools in mind, I encourage everyone to take action to stay safe this respiratory virus season. Merci. Thank you.
I hope it doesn't go where I'm afraid it might be going. I said the other night, please don't. I was trying to speak directly to the Prime Minister. You know, mandates, masks, mask rule, mask mandates, all that stuff again. If we go down that same road, I don't know if the country can survive. People are angry. Some people. And yet, I know from speaking to people over the weekend in Toronto, in an artsy community that's pretty left-wing woke, the views are so different. There's such a divide, such polarization. How are we ever going to come together? They see it, that in a completely different way. Even Democrats, at this point, it's one of the main reasons they don't like RFK Jr. I think for them, within that party, it is so politicized that if you want to lead the DNC, I think it's like a vaccine mandate for the candidate. No jabberoonie and no nomination for you. At another level, people are afraid that all these rules, these things that we've been through over the last 3 years might be coming back. Even though this big convoy is supposed to be completely peaceful, that's what we're told, we're also hearing this kind of stuff because people are afraid. People are concerned. This kind of stuff right here, I'm going to run it for you. This big, Save the Children convoy coming up. A lot of it being fueled again by concerns about where we're going with these mandates. And, before I run this, I think we're going to have to jump off YouTube. I've got other stuff that I need to talk about, and I don't think we should be talking about it on YouTube. So let's get off YouTube. Let me come over here and get the link for the Rumble channel. Here's the, I'll put it in the chat. Now the link to the channel is in the description on the YouTube channel, so you can find us over there. And I will also put it in the chat over here on our other feed, because we're streaming all over the place, all over the world. Here's the Rumble channel. I'm going to jump off. There's the Rumble channel. Please go over to Rumble. Continue to watch us there. And while you're there, if you would consider subscribing to our Rumble channel, that would be stellar. Really helpful. I'll put the link in again. Somebody said, where's the link? There it is there. There's the link right there. And in the description on YouTube, underneath, there's also a link to the channel, which lists all of when you click on it, it will go to the channel and list all the videos, including the current live stream that we are running right now. And then you would just, from that channel, click the top one, which is the current program live streaming right now, and you're in. So let me jump off all these YouTube platforms, channels tonight. Here we go. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll be over on Rumble. Over on Rumble.